So this is the 100th episode of me watching and reviewing every single episode of One Piece. So if you want to continue joining me for the journey, then please make sure to follow. But specifically in this episode, we learned a little bit more about the leader of the rebel army, and that is a guy called Koza. We've seen him before, but we learned a bit more about his origin and how he relates to Vivi and Yuba and all of that sort of stuff. This episode was a flashback to about 11 years ago when Vivi and Koza were kids, and they were actually sort of competing against each other to start with. You know, they were having fights and just sort of like doing what kids do, you know, just scuffling basically. But eventually they turned into really good friends. And even back then, Koza had his own little army, or his own little gang, I suppose you could call it. It's called the Sand Gang. And I mean, it goes to show that Koza is like a natural born leader. You can tell by his actions as well. This kid is absolutely fearless, or well, maybe not fearless, but he's got a heart of gold. He's willing to stand up for his friends when they're in danger. For instance, Vivi got kidnapped in this episode and basically held for ransom, as we know she is the princess of Alabasta. And Koza was willing to fight this grown man who had a full-on sword with a club, and he managed to actually beat him with it. He took a pretty nasty slash to the eye, but even so, the fact that he managed to do that is incredible. It's not even necessarily the fact that he beat him, but the fact that he was willing to even try and risk his own life for this girl at his age is incredible. It says a lot about him, and it also goes to show, like, how did he end up in the position he is, where he's the leader of this rebel army? I have a few theories as to how this has happened. You can tell how much Koza cares about this country. You know, he grew up here and he does love this place, and he's got a lot of passion for it. Even as a kid, when he was confronting the king about the struggles of the country, you can tell, you know, he loves this place and he wants it to improve, and he doesn't want to be stuck in like a bad situation. He wants to almost help the country be better, even to the point where him and his dad are the ones that actually built the city of Yuba, or at least they're the ones that sort of championed the making of it in general. The thought behind Yuba as a city was to make Alabasta as a whole a more beautiful place to be, and that was championed pretty much by Koza and his dad and Cobra, you know, the king of Alabasta. My point being is Koza clearly cares a lot about this country, and if somebody like Crocodile came along and manipulated him into thinking that the king is potentially causing harm to this country and causing the drought and all that sort of stuff, I could see somebody like Koza being manipulated by somebody like Crocodile, because Koza is very kind-hearted. He cares about the people genuinely. He cares about his country, and he seems like the sort of person that could start a rebel army. We know he has, but it just makes sense from what we've seen so far as a kid. I can only imagine what he's like as an adult in a much grander scale. He has clearly been manipulated into this rebel army thing, and having, you know, the country fight itself essentially, while Crocodile sits in the background and laughs like some sort of mastermind. I'm very interested to see what the state is like of Yuba right now. I also am interested to see how Koza reacts when he sees Vivi, because they were clearly very close as kids. But if Koza believes that Vivi is in any part related to what's happening in Alabasta right now, I could see it going very, very poorly. I'm very intrigued to see what happens, to say the least. A couple side notes I really enjoyed about this episode. Seeing baby Karoo, I just thought that was the best thing ever. We only saw him briefly, but it's just adorable. And the other thing that I really loved about this episode was seeing Vivi interact with everybody in Alabasta. You know, she is a princess, but she doesn't sort of act like one. She acts like a normal citizen, a normal pedestrian, essentially, you know, hanging out with Koza, being friends with them. The friendship was obviously genuine. And just hanging out with all those sort of people, I just thought it was quite nice. And it gives the vibe of Alabasta sort of being a really peaceful, friendly place to be. Even the king, you know, Cobra and Igarum, you know, hang out with the citizens, and it's all very friendly and peaceful, which, I mean, when you see how it's like today and what's happened to it, it makes it even sadder, the fact that it was so nice back then, and now it's all sort of gone tits up due to this one horrible person called Crocodile. Yeah, let's see what happens next.